Right, here we are. We are back with, I think this is now episode 4 or 5 of Fintech Fridays in 2022. And bringing back a familiar face, actually one of our most attended, or whatever I don't even know, most viewed, no pun intended, episodes of Fintech Friday was when I had Courtney Thompson on last year, and she's back. Hello.
2022. I know what year it is.
It's here. So when we talked last, when you came on last year, you had kind of some pretty big news to share. It was, personally, you had a kind of a transformational event, right? And it was all about transformation. That was your mission. You kind of went out on your own as a consultancy, and we're working on kind of transforming the servicing business. So let's start with, how did that go?
Well, I mean, it was the scariest thing that I've done for me, just because I've always been a hustler, and I was kind of raised to be, I'm a West Michigan girl. I was raised to be a little bit at risk adverse and to take care of my own and, all of these other things. And when I launched Consigliera last year, I really, truly had a knowing that it was time to figure out what the next best path was for me. And I gratefully was able to, for a very short period of time, help friends in the industry, and then try to figure it out. And that was originally my plan. And what happened when I opened the little consulting firm that could, the mortgage servicing industry, basically ran to my house and picked me up and carried me through 2021. Tell you wow, I'm getting a little bit verklempt here. Honestly, I can't tell you the number of humans that reached out to me, were helpful to me, were like, hey, you want to do this fun project or this fun thing? And I was like, yeah, I want to do that fun project and that fun thing, and some nasty ones too. I did some nasty projects.
Sure. Yeah. It is service.
Yeah, and I was able to reconnect with this industry or connect with this industry, I should say, in a way that I never have. You know this, Brian, when you're a client, right? When you work at a financial institution, vendors have to talk to you, right? When you're no longer a client and then you see people talking to you, it's such a great honor, and it's so lovely. Yeah. But it really, I received an education in summer of 2021, unlike any other year, and learned even more about the problems that mortgage servicing and mortgage faces. Did some fun policy things, did some cool webinars. And, ultimately, like many things in life, the patterns started coming up where I would talk to servicer clients and they all had the same problems at the same time. Right. And so some of the hypotheses that I had in my former shop that we worked around, I realized were not unique to that circumstance. And, the common theme is there's got to be a better way.
And I love it, because that's our paths were parallel, just different timing. And I kind of stayed more on the front end origination, which is where I kind of cut my teeth, and you did on the servicing side. But since then, and in the last few weeks, there's been even more exciting news with Courtney. So congratulations. And talk to us about your new role at Sagent Lending Technologies. And I'm a big fan of Dan and the team there. And I think it's going to be awesome to kind of see you help them continue their vision for transformation in the servicing space.
Absolutely. So Sagent was a client of mine, and I was connected, through, this tribe that the mortgage servicing industry has. Thank you, Mortgage Servicing Industry Tribe. Originally it started off as a business conversation. Dan reached out and said, hey, you're saying some things that are a little bit different. Can we talk? Can you maybe help us? And we realized with each discussion that there was, a ton of symbiosis. And then when you look at the profile of Sagent, they have a new leadership team. They have a new influx of, support, from the PE firm that backs them. It's like they've been on this, I would say, strong hike, right, up a mountain of sorts. And they're really at a point and in a place in the industry where they're genuinely best positioned to make big changes and, cause transformation, or the word that we joke around with right now is transmutation, which is transformation into something better, right? And, they also have huge bench strength. I was going to say they have huge bench strength in the industry. If you look at the leadership team and their experience in building both mortgage technology, in relationships in the space, in know-how from an enterprise SaaS perspective, there can't be a better home for the little consulting firm that could, right? Which is just and it was a bit of a coming of age story, but at the end of the day, the symbiosis was so strong there. The desire for a better way was there, and these common concepts of putting the homeowner first, the convergence of origination and servicing, these big themes, or, my big theme that I want to, I always talk about meeting humans where they are. And that's always been the soul of me, but also Consigliera. And now it is, we really want this transformation for the homeowner, but in honor of the servicing operator. Because servicing operators deserve better too. I'm sure on the origination side, there's a lot of the similar feelings, right? The operator, deserves a say in this too. And so we're really trying to bring everybody to the party.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. When I saw the news, and I may have gotten a head start on it, I don't know. But when I saw the news, it made all the sense in the world, because, I think people probably logically thought, oh, Courtney will go to another servicer, right, and help another servicer. And this move is like, you get to help dozens of servicers, right? And kind of truly bring best practices across and leverage kind of a technology platform to do that. So I think the move is brilliant on everyone's part.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because I believe I had the best job in mortgage servicing. I did. And I think that when I knew it was time for me to evolve and for my contribution to evolve, because I knew that I could give more than what I was giving, I thought about it, and I had some conversations about it, right? When I became, was it a sports ball word, free agent? I know sports ball is really big right now. So, and I'm honored by any of that dialogue, right? But at the same time, it was not just recreate what you did or level up what you did in a different way or try it with digital. Yes, I would love to do that too, but it is, how can I help this ecosystem really solve these problems, instead of, quite candidly, paying me or paying, a big four consulting firm, or, paying whoever to tell you what your problems are, but not solve the root cause of the big problems of the big dogs in the industry. And so, I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity, for the platform, but really to jam with my folks in servicing and solve these problems once and for all. Like, it's not.
I love it. So this we're gonna go a little deep, a couple layers below, because what I found is the audience that watches this or listens to this, besides my mom,
Hi, Mom.
is mostly on the origination side. So they all play a role in servicing, even though they don't know that, right? Or they want to pretend they don't know it. And so let's just kind of go a layer deep, and because you talked a couple times about solving the problems that exist in servicing, maybe let's just pick on a few of those problems, and then how do those problems ultimately go back up and impact that originator, or do they? And then just your thoughts on how technology can help to solve those over time.
I mean, I think that the biggest one that we all see, let's take digitization of the mortgage, right? Let's take that one. That's a big hot topic on everybody's panels, on everybody's everything. Consumer adoption, how do we achieve this? And it's just that everything is so piecemeal. Everything is so fragmented, right? That even installing, my big thing with Stavvy this summer was remote online notarization, right? Even plugging in another player in the ecosystem with the way the ecosystem is constructed is challenging, right? Yes. And, from an operator perspective, and, I love the operator, from the operator perspective, the price of the energy that it takes to innovate, to make the business case, to, establish, the team internally, to run a project at a financial institution, to actually get the integration. It is so high that that the return has to be something huge, even to bring the consumer something little, right? And I just think that, mortgage is fundamentally, or real estate is fundamentally a system that was built around little buildings called registers of deeds offices because we didn't have cars. So we, rode our horse on our, I bet you've never ridden horses on your podcast before, to the Register of Deeds office with this big, long piece of paper with a big, long legal description that made sense at the time. Because, we were limited from a transportation perspective, but one of the founding principles of our country really is real estate and home ownership and the ability to be independent in a broader ecosystem, right? So I just think we've had a harder time evolving. And so if you think about now, I mean, even the concept of a mortgage not being in paper makes custodians around the country go,
yeah. What do we do? How do we do this?
Right. But at the center of it all, and I would love your perspective, from an origination perspective, is that, there's the old way of doing things, technology, consumer expectation, and the regulatory environment has dramatically evolved, right, since 2008, 9, 10. And, there's solutions in the marketplace, but they're always popping up in Fintech and in more increments, which argue make the system more complicated unless they're designed like FinLocker, to bring ecosystems together.
Right.
I don't know.
So, I think that's all very important and relevant. And now to tie it back to the street level loan originator and why it's important to him or her, when you just talk about what you talked about and you layer on each of those components, there's a cost component to each of those. And at the end of the day, add it all up and it's the quote unquote cost to service, which translates back at the originator level into your price, into your rate, into what you can give your customer. And so why managing a better process and being more efficient and reducing costs is important, because ultimately it impacts what the consumer pays. And that's what we started the conversation talking about, what's in it for the consumer. Well, in this case, it's what's in it for the consumer is if there is this efficient process and the cost is down, then they can get a better loan, a better rate, a lower payment, all the stuff that they can quantify.
And in theory, the first adopters are the ones that will win, right? Because they have a cheaper, more interesting product. They can bring more people into their total ecosystem. And then the more that we, better together is the theme of, 2021, when we bring all of this stuff closer together and you really understand consumer behavior or the information about the consumer's financial picture or any of these other things, you can be a better originator as well as, in my opinion, being a better servicer. Because if you can deliver to the consumer control and loyalty and education and an ecosystem that they trust, I mean, I don't know if you've spent any time reading the Pew studies on like Gen X, Gen Z, and all these people that I now feel are young folks, coming up, those are the things that they want. They want to be committed to a brand. They want to say that they're an XYZ customer and they want to stay, but they have high expectations.
Right. Yep. And there's table stakes before you can even meet the expectations. And it's funny because, leaving the 28 years of kind of primary mortgage originations and coming into this fintech space, which is why I can wear sweatshirts now during the day.
Camouflage.
What I thought 2 years ago was kind of cutting edge. I'm like, oh no, that's table stakes. You don't even get to play if you can't do these things. And so it continues to evolve at a very rapid pace. And what's exciting to me is we saw a lot of transformation, again, bifurcated, componentized in mortgage originations, and still haven't brought it all together. But for a long time, you weren't seeing any of that happening after the loan was boarded, which is arguably the most important time. Once you have the customer, how do you keep the customer, but also make the customer successful so that it's a good trade for you as the asset owner, right? And so it's exciting to see it finally kind of really take hold in servicing. For me, when I watched the new team assemble at Sagent early on, that was eye-opening because, there wasn't another competitor really out there for the big one. We won't talk about the big one. And I think Sagent is definitely positioned to make some noise there, and adding thought leaders like yourself that really kind of not only operated in the environment but have a vision for a better experience is super important.
And obviously, there's room in this marketplace for everyone, right? There's some good budding young fintechs trying to approach this problem as well. I think that it is, everybody gets to choose who they want to do business with, what their perspective is, and what their goals ultimately are. Right. And, I think that there's room for that with some organizations and there's not room for it with other organizations. And I think that there's a real, I'm really proud of, this group of people that were willing to accept me into their own. Right. And, really, it's the best of both worlds. Right. So there's this really cool Vincent van Gogh quote. Did you see we live in the same metropolitan area. Did you go see the Van Gogh exhibit downtown?
Not yet. Or I missed it.
No, so there's this really great Vincent van Gogh quote, which says that true inspiration and true innovation, true transformation comes from carrying a deep respect for the old model and understanding why it was successful and why it was founded, and then putting your glitter sparkles all over it and making it new, right? You can't just bust onto the scene with firecrackers and a fancy jacket and say I'm going to change the world, right? Which I do think that there's a bit of that in VC these days. You have to respect the old model. You have to understand where things came from, which is interesting because for me, with all the fintech companies that I worked with in 2021, I always liked the ones a little bit better when the founders or the leaders were people that had actually been in the trenches before, right? Yeah. And so, this is, that's the difference. That's the difference between a FinLocker. That's a difference with, a lot of other, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention other names, but I love Azimuth. Azimuth, it was created by a guy who managed risk stuff forever. And then he was like, oh, there's got to be a better way. Right. And Rowan Targa. And I just, I think that, those are the game changers in this marketplace. And for me, if somebody said, who should we be watching? It's the people that earned their stripes and said, okay, thank you. And maybe enough is enough. And, they're trying to find a new yellow brick road. They're trying to find the man behind the curtain. But I think that might be a woman.
Right. Oh, yeah. I love that. And thank you for that, because I'm not a founder and I'm not a new guy. I was battling through the old way for 28 years, and believed that there was a better way, and took a risk, took a swing, and what's cool is I'm seeing more of that happening in our space, which is really exciting. And there's a combination. There's also some really young people who are recognizing the problems and are intent on bringing technology to solve, which I think is cool. It's like this weird combination of kind of tried and true, let's make it better, versus I don't know what they do, but it's got to be better, and we're kind of bringing that together, which is neat.
Yeah, and I think that, as with most things in life, which is really boring, I mean, Buddha had it right? Like, it's in the balance, right? And it's in the respect for the two things where you get like the yin yang, you get the peace in the middle. And I really do believe. Here's a prognostication that might be unauthorized. I think we're going to get it right in the next few years. I really do. Yeah. I think we're so close.
I feel like it.
But there's got to be a couple bold leaders in the servicing marketplace, in the origination space, likely candidates that do both, that can say how and when and how, and let's do it, right? I think we're close.
Yeah, I agree. I just came off of the Mortgage Bankers Association's Independent Mortgage Banker Conference. Sagent was well represented there. And the buzz, it wasn't just a buzz because people were actually face-to-face again, which has been a while since that's happened.
That'd be awkward.
As I talked with, dozens of these owner-operators, they actually believe that change is well underway. And there's a overarching bullish feeling for our industry in spite of 7% inflation and rising interest rates and yada, yada, yada. All that stuff's BS. That these are, decades old mortgage companies, and they're super bullish on where the industry's going and still feel like they can contribute and have a meaningful role in it, and are embracing the digital experience all over their operation, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think that the ones that will win will recognize that maybe the old systems don't serve us anymore. And I'm not talking about tech systems, actually. I'm talking about ecosystems and ways of doing things where, the world has changed, period, right? And COVID gave us another kick in the fanny toward the recognition that the world has changed, and maybe we haven't, gotten to where we need to be.
Yeah.
I experienced that, and in the servicing shop that I worked in, we were first to market with a website. We were first to, truly, and I still felt the pain of getting kicked in the face. Right. So I don't know. I think that it is those thought leaders that believe that the world has changed and that we have to develop better systems, and there's ways to, I'm forgetting the capital term for putting money on things. There's ways to monetize new systems, just like the way we monetize the old systems. And so it's really, really exciting.
So last question, it's probably should have asked this one earlier. So when people generally think about servicing, especially those that are in our space, but maybe way upstream, and maybe they're not in an organization that actually services loans, so they don't have the visibility experience. I think there's oftentimes kind of this thought that it's either really boring, and it is, and boring is good in servicing though, right? When people are making their payments on time and taxes and interest is getting remitted, all that, or it's really chaotic. Yeah. As you think about this kind of transmutation that's underway, do you think there's an equal opportunity for that change to impact both the mundane part of servicing as well as the chaos, the delinquent, the default side?
I think we have to kick servicing in the fanny too. I think we have to stop thinking about customers as performing and non-performing. I think we have to stop thinking about core servicing versus ancillary servicing, a specialized servicing, all of this gamboli. We have to look at it as an ecosystem that supports humans, because PS, that's the way the world is evolving. We're thinking about taking care of people and making sure things, I mean, what do you think the CFPB actually does? Their mission is actually to help humans, even though, you know, financial institutions are sometimes caught in the fray. And so I do think that it is by stepping away from the vehicle and kicking the old model in the fanny a little bit, is where we see these things come together. And maybe it's not origination and servicing anymore, Brian. Maybe it's the new word in the middle.
Yeah. Love it. Well, that's a topic for another episode altogether. Well, as always, Courtney, I love our riffing sessions, and congratulations to you and to the Sagent team. It's really great for our industry. It's obviously wonderful for you individually and for Sagent. I think the sky's the limit there. So thanks again for joining and for sharing your kind of thoughts on all things servicing.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
And everybody else, thanks for coming back this week, and we'll see you next Friday. Peace out. Okay, stop.